Alright, welcome back to Vista 2 Onyx, and in this video we're going to talk all about controlling fixtures and creating stage looks. Now, this is one of those areas that I think people get caught up a lot in the nuance of basically how Vista has an approach to creating looks with lighting, and pretty much every other lighting console out on the market uses a slightly different approach, Onyx being one of those. And it's not just say one is right or wrong, but it's different, and it's one of those things that people really get caught up on when thinking about switching from Vista to something else. I'm here to show you today that it's actually not that big of a deal, and I think you'll find it can be really easy. So the first thing is, if we go select some lights, let's go with a different light this time. We'll go with our Artiste Da Vinci's in this example. And we're going to go ahead now, and we've got our different tabs here where we're able to access the different parameters. This is, again, our Vista style tabs that we brought in, where we're able to work with all of the parameters in kind of natural ways. The first one is just simply the DMX channel that's selected. Then we've got our color mixer, our effects link, our pan tilt in an XY grid, as you can see, and our effects visualizer. Now, when it comes down to it, more often than not, the best way to work with parameters is to store things into presets, which we haven't gotten to yet. But when it comes to just activating fixtures and working with their parameters, it really is as simple as popping up this window here and working with the parameters individually. You're going to see it's very visual. So I can work with the parameters here visually, and it's also going to work about the same way on a physical console. Let's take a quick look at that. So when we're on a physical Onyx console, we have our keypad, and to the right of that, we have a number of keys. So this looks just like the screen where we're able to get to our individual colors, things like gobos, etc. If we're on a console, getting to the color picker is even easier on an NX4 or NX2 and possibly future consoles with this small touchscreen. We can just double tap right up here. And in this instance, I'm working with a non-color mixing fixture. I have got just the individual color swatches, okay? Closing that, it's going to be the same with the gobo. You can see we have all the gobos in order by wheel visually. And so whether you're on a PC or on a console, it's going to be a very similar process to work with these things. Back to the PC. So as mentioned, all of the channels are separated into what are called parameter groups here, where you're able to move the encoders if you have like an NX K or you've got a console with encoders like this NX4 beside me, or we can just use this either with this pop-up and we can scroll right over, or we can use the window, as noted before, to bring up the individual parameters in a linear fashion, right? Pretty simple, okay? More often than not, I pop this up if I'm just on a PC, but if I'm on a console, I leave it down and use the encoders. Switching between parameter groups can be done, as I mentioned, on the consoles, either with the screen, or if you're on an NX1, for example, you're going to have function keys that allow you to switch between those groups, or you can define custom function keys that do that as well. So you can actually have a key that you would press. They're identical to the ones on our NX4 that are here, where you store onto these function keys the different parameter groups, and then as you press those, you just are going between the different, you're switching between pan tilt, color, gobo, etc. In this particular pop-up here, this is called the channel visualization, you're going to be working with the actual innards, the actual parameters of the lights and how they work. To use things like the color picker, we can use it here in the window we made, choose a color, etc. They're also available here if we pop them out to the left. All of these same visualizers, including if we go to something like gobos, we'll see the gobo images and they're sorted in order by wheel, so you know exactly what you're working with. All of these tabs essentially and channels work the same way, and there's nothing too particular about them. With all of them, you can put your scroll wheel over it, you can use the encoder wheels. There are a variety of ways to work with them and be able to get exactly what you're looking for. If you are on a console or you have a device like an NX K or an NX Touch from Onyx, and you find that this is just a little too sensitive or it's not sensitive enough, you can hit this cog in the corner and change the resolution. By default, generally things are dynamic, which means the software is looking at how quickly or slowly you move and adjusting it on its own. Now, sometimes the sensitivity adjustment, sometimes that just doesn't work for people, or it's a little too sensitive for what you're doing. That's okay. All of the resolutions are available here, with 16 being very fine and 8 being coarse. And when you change these resolutions, it's going to change them as you're working with these parameters, okay? It's stored by parameter. So for example, I just set pan tilt to 8, but then if I go back to intensity, you see it's still on dynamic, okay? Now, you can also put these as a function key, save it on your sidebar, save it on a function key on the console. There's lots of ways to work with that. When we start working with parameters, very similar to Vista, there is a programmer screen, which is a lot like Vista's Live tab, okay? This shows you what is actually active in the programmer ready to record somewhere, okay? So it's not showing you, unlike the 2D plan, which is going to show you all output if things are being played by cues, etc., as well as the programmer. It's only the things in the programmer show here. And that's what would be saved to a cue when we press record. Pretty simple, right? Let's talk about clearing the programmer. So clearing the programmer in Onyx is very simple. If you want to clear everything, press clear twice, and everything will clear out. There's also an undo key to bring things back. Now, this isn't a system-wide undo that undoes the commands, but it undoes what you've most recently put in the programmer. Quite handy. There are a few other clear functions which are really key, so I'm just going to reselect my fixtures real quick. If I clear once, I get my clear pop-up, which is going to give me some options here. So I can do things like just only make my fixtures inactive when I press clear the second time or press enter, etc. I can also clear or knock out fixtures from the programmer or individual parameters of the lights themselves, much like you may be used to in Onyx, in Vista. It's actually really simple. So I could say clear fixture 101, okay? Right here, fixture 101's in my programmer. Now it's not. We've cleared all those parameters out. It is still currently selected, so it's showing up here, but there's no parameters in the programmer at all. We can also clear individual features or channels from a light. There's a variety of ways to do that. Some of the easiest is to simply go ahead, select the fixtures you want to clear, maybe these three, and maybe I just want to clear the color. Well, I could clear the individual channel by right-clicking up here and pressing clear. If I'm on a console, I could also hold the clear key, which is right here, and then click in the parameter of, or the encoder rather, of that parameter wheel. I could also hold the clear key and press, or as noted, right click and press clear right here. That cleared just my cyan, but if I wanted to clear all of the color, I just do it over here. It's really pretty simple and intuitive. Okay, so we can clear fixtures, we can clear individual parameters of individual or selected fixtures as desired. Okay, now there is a feature called Home in Vista, which really isn't necessary in Onyx. That feature sends things back to what's called their default value, but in Onyx, when you clear them fully, that's where they go. So there's really not a need for that feature here. We covered fanning in the last video, but one other thing that Vista users that you might be aware of and used to doing would be copying and pasting looks between fixtures. And that's one of those things that people say, oh man, I'll never leave Vista because it's just, that's just something I use too much. Well, let's show you how easy it really can be. All we're going to do is grab these fixtures and let's just say we turn them on, we tilt them forward so we can see them really good. And then we're going to do a color thing, right? So the first fixture could be cyan, and the second fixture could be like a nice red. Okay, perfect. How do we copy this to the rest of the fixtures in that row? Well, it's actually really simple. Sure, something like Vista, you were used to doing a lot of clicking, dragging, right-clicking, etc. And I think you'll find that the way Onyx does it is actually faster a lot of the time once you learn the syntax, which is not all that hard. So in the case of Onyx, we're going to use the load command, and we're going to say that we want to load 103 through 110, and then we just press at 101 plus 102. I could probably do 101 through 102, but I chose plus. Press enter, and voila, it's been copied over. But we don't have to copy everything over. We can load and copy and do things like that with individual parameters. So, for example, we could go ahead and we could turn these to a nice white, and then I could say load color. Should be able to load, or rather load and just filter color. My apologies. And if I'm holding the load key, I think it works. But load color, and then I would type, let's see, same syntax, so 103 through 110 at 101 through 102. And now we loaded just the color across all of those fixtures. So there's lots of ways to do this, really all the same functionalities there. And honestly, once you learn what to type on the keypad, it's a lot faster than clicking and dragging and right-clicking around. This is also where we recommend definitely the on-screen keypad's great, but the Onyx NX Ks are really inexpensive and make your programming life so much easier. So if you're going to do a lot of programming and you're just on a PC, or if you're on an NX1, I would definitely get yourself an NX K. Get it from Learn Stage Lighting Gear. Next, what else do we have? There's Paste Special. That's only pasting certain features. We just did that. And so, voila. We covered everything in this video, which mirrors the one in the Vista training series on controlling fixtures and creating stage looks. So next, what we're going to do is talk about storing our different features and working with our presets. And it turns out, just like everything else, it's not too difficult. It's not going to stop you from switching over. In fact, you might find it's easier than you thought. We'll see you guys there. Thanks.